Welcome back to NextGen ICT. This is HTML Day 2, and today we move from understanding HTML to actually using it. In the previous lesson, we learned what HTML is and why it plays such an important role on the web. Today, we'll take the next step by setting up our tools and creating our very first HTML page. You'll learn which tools you need, how to create an HTML file, and how browsers turn that file into a real web page. This lesson is completely beginner-friendly, so if this is your first time writing code, don't worry. We'll go step by step. By the end of this video, you'll have your first HTML page running in a browser. Let's get started with HTML Day 2. In this lesson, we officially begin working with HTML. Today is all about getting started. We'll set up the basic tools you need, create your very first HTML file, and see how a browser turns HTML code into a real web page. This is a hands-on session, so I encourage you to follow along and practice as we go. By the end of today's lesson, you'll have your first HTML page running in your browser, and you'll be ready to move forward with confidence. Before we start writing HTML, let's talk about the tools we need. The good news is that getting started with HTML is very simple and does not require any special or expensive software. To work with HTML, you only need two things: a text editor to write the code and a web browser to view the result. First, let's understand what a text editor is. A text editor allows you to write plain text files, which is exactly what HTML is. This is very different from tools like Microsoft Word. Word processors are designed for formatting documents visually. They add hidden styles, fonts, and formatting that browsers cannot understand. A code editor, on the other hand, is built specifically for writing code. It shows your code exactly as it is without adding anything extra behind the scenes. This makes it the correct and reliable choice for writing HTML. One of the most popular code editors today is Visual Studio Code, also known as VS Code. We use VS Code because it is free, lightweight, and easy to use for beginners. It also highlights code, helps catch mistakes, and works on Windows, macOS, and Linux. To view our HTML files, we use a web browser. Browsers like Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Mozilla Firefox read HTML files and display them as web pages. You don't need an internet connection to do this. The browser can open HTML files directly from your computer. The most important thing to remember is this: HTML itself does not require any special software. If you can type text and open a browser, you can start learning HTML. Keep it simple, follow along, and don't overthink the tools. HTML is designed to be easy to get started with. Now that we know we need a text editor, let's install Visual Studio Code, or VS Code. First, open your web browser and go to the official website at code.visualstudio.com. Make sure to download it from the official site to get the latest version safely. Next, choose your operating system. VS Code works on Windows, Mac, and Linux, so no matter what computer you have, you can use it. Once the installer is downloaded, open it and follow the prompts. On Windows, this usually involves agreeing to the license, choosing an installation location, and clicking Install. On Mac or Linux, follow the instructions for your system. It's simple and straightforward. After installation, open VS Code. You'll notice it's free, lightweight, and loads quickly. This is one of the reasons why VS Code is so popular among developers, both beginners and professionals. Another reason for its popularity is extensions. VS Code allows you to install small add-ons called extensions that make coding easier. For example, you can add a live preview for HTML, syntax highlighting for different languages, or helpful code suggestions. Don't worry if you don't install any extensions right now. You can explore them as you progress. The key takeaway is that VS Code is simple, free, and works on almost any computer. It gives you a clean environment to write code without unnecessary distractions, making it perfect for learning HTML. Once VS Code is installed, you're ready to create your first HTML file and start coding. Before we start writing our HTML file, it's important to create a project folder to keep everything organized. First, choose a location on your computer where you want to store your projects. This could be your desktop or documents folder and anywhere easy to find. Next, create a new folder and give it a clear name. For example, you can call it HTML-Day02 or My-First-Website. A meaningful name makes it easier to locate and manage your files later. Inside this folder, we'll save all the files related to today's project, including your HTML files, images, and any other assets. Keeping everything in one folder helps you stay organized and avoids confusion, especially as you start building more complex websites. Even though this step may seem simple, proper organization is an essential habit for all developers. It makes your work easier to maintain and prevents mistakes, like losing files or linking images incorrectly. Once your folder is ready, we're ready to create our first HTML file inside it. Remember, good organization now will save you time and headaches later. So take a moment to set up your folder properly and so on. It's an important first step in your web development journey. Now that we have our project folder ready, it's time to create our first HTML file using VS Code. First, open Visual Studio Code. If it's your first time, don't worry, we'll go step by step. Next, in VS Code, go to File, then Open Folder, and select the folder you just created. For example, HTML-Day02. This will make sure all your project files are saved in one place. Once the folder is open, go to File and click New File. Name this file index.html. Make sure the extension is .html and not .txt. The name index.html is special because it serves as the default page when browsers open a folder or a website. After naming your file, press Enter. Your file will now appear in the folder sidebar in VS Code. One important thing to remember is to save your work regularly. You can do this by pressing Ctrl+S on Windows or Command+S on Mac. Saving ensures your code is stored correctly, and you'll avoid losing progress. Now your HTML file is ready. In the next step, we'll write our first lines of HTML code and see it come to life in the browser. Don't worry if this feels new. Creating and saving an HTML file is one of the simplest steps in web development, and you've just done it correctly. Now it's time to write our first HTML code and see how it works in a browser. Let's start by typing the following into your index.html file. Let's go through this step by step. First, doctype. Like HTML tells the browser that this file is written in HTML5, which is the latest version of HTML. It helps the browser understand how to display the page correctly. Next, HTML is the root element. It wraps all the content of your page. Think of it as the container for everything. Inside HTML, we have two main sections, head and body. The head section contains information about your page that the browser uses but doesn't show directly. For example, the title tag inside the head sets the title of your page, which appears on the Browser tab. In this example, our title is My First Page. The body section contains everything you see on the page. Here we have an H1 tag, which is a heading displaying Hello World. Below it, we have a P tag, which is a paragraph containing the text, This is my first HTML page. Once you type this code, save the file using Ctrl+S or Command+S and open it in your browser. You'll see your heading and paragraph displayed exactly as you wrote them. Congratulations! You've just created your first HTML page, and these are the basic building blocks you'll use in every web page you make. Don't worry if it seems simple. This is the foundation of web development, and you'll be building more complex pages step by step. Now that we've written our first HTML code, it's very important to save the file correctly. First, make sure your file is saved with the .html extension. If you accidentally save it as .txt or leave out the extension, the browser won't recognize it as an HTML file. Next, always check that the file encoding is UTF-8. UTF-8 ensures that your page can display all characters correctly, including special symbols, letters from different languages, and emojis. In VS Code, UTF-8 is usually set by default, but it's good to double-check at the bottom right of the window. Remember to save your work frequently. On Windows, you can press Ctrl+S, and on Mac, press Command+S. This prevents you from losing any changes. A common beginner mistake is not saving the file at all or accidentally saving it in the wrong folder. Always double-check that your file is inside your project folder, for example, HTML-day02. Saving correctly may seem simple, but it's a critical habit. Properly saved files ensure your HTML works perfectly in the browser and make it easier to manage your projects as they grow. Once your file is saved correctly, we're ready to open it in the browser and see our first web page in action. Now that our HTML file is saved correctly, it's time to see it come to life in a web browser. The easiest way to do this is to double-click your index.html file in your project folder. Your default browser will open, and you should see the heading and paragraph you wrote. Alternatively, you can open your browser first, then drag the HTML file into the browser window. Both methods work the same way. You can use any modern browser like Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Mozilla Firefox. They all read HTML files correctly, so you can choose the one you're most comfortable with. Opening your file in a browser is exciting because you get instant feedback. Every time you make a change in your HTML file, simply save it and refresh the browser to see the updated page. This is a key part of the workflow for all web developers. Remember, you do not need the internet to open an HTML file. Everything is running locally on your computer, which makes learning and experimenting very easy. By opening your file in a browser, you've just taken your first step from writing code to seeing a real web page. It's a simple but powerful moment in your web development journey. Now that you've opened your first HTML page in the browser, it's important to understand how changes appear as you work. Every time you make a change to your HTML file, whether it's adding a heading, paragraph, or a new element, you need to save the file first. On Windows, press Ctrl+S, and on Mac, press Command+S. After saving, go back to your browser and refresh the page. You will see your changes immediately. This simple cycle of editing, saving, and refreshing is how web developers work every day. This workflow may seem small, but it's the foundation for all web development. It allows you to experiment, test ideas, and instantly see the results of your work. As you continue learning HTML, practicing this workflow will make you more comfortable and confident with writing and testing code. Remember, mistakes are part of learning. If something doesn't appear as expected, check your code, save again, and refresh. Each small adjustment is a step toward mastering HTML. As you start writing HTML, it's completely normal to make mistakes. Every web developer has been there. Let's go over some of the most common beginner mistakes and how to avoid them. First, make sure your file has the correct .html extension. Saving it as .txt or forgetting the extension will prevent your browser from displaying your page correctly. Second, watch out for missing or mismatched tags. HTML tags usually come in pairs, like H1 tag. Forgetting to close a tag can cause parts of your page to display incorrectly. Third, always save your file in the correct project folder. Saving it somewhere else can make it difficult for your browser to find linked files, such as images or style sheets later on. Finally, don't forget to save your changes before refreshing the browser. Many beginners edit their code but forget to save, so the browser doesn't show the updates. Remember, mistakes are part of learning. The key is to check your code carefully, save often, and keep practicing. Over time, these habits will make coding much easier and more enjoyable. Now that you've created your first HTML page and seen it in the browser, it's time to practice what you've learned. Your task is simple but important. Start by editing your existing index.html file. Change the heading text inside H1 to something personal like your name or a favorite phrase. Next, add another paragraph using the P tag. You can write anything, a short introduction about yourself, a fun fact, or even a motivational quote. Try experimenting with multiple headings and paragraphs. Notice how each change appears in the browser after you save and refresh. This hands-on practice will help you become comfortable with writing and organizing HTML. Remember, this is your playground. Don't worry about mistakes, they're part of learning. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in writing HTML. Take a few minutes to complete this exercise, and once you're done, you'll be ready to move on to HTML Day 3, where we'll explore the structure of an HTML page in more detail. Great job completing HTML Day 2. By now, you've set up your tools, created your first HTML file, and practiced editing it in the browser. In the next lesson, HTML Day 3, we'll dive deeper into the structure of an HTML page. You'll learn why the and sections are so important and how they work together to create a well-organized web page. We'll also explore headings, paragraphs, and other essential elements in more detail so you can write cleaner and more meaningful. Remember, web development is all about taking small steps and building your skills step by step. Keep practicing what you learned today, and you'll be ready for the next challenge. That's it for HTML Day 2. Today, you created your first HTML page and saw how simple it is to get started. Make sure to practice by editing your file and experimenting with the code. In the next lesson, we'll break down the structure of HTML and understand how each part works. I'll see you in HTML Day 3. If you enjoyed this lesson and want to keep learning HTML with me, make sure to subscribe to NextGen ICT, hit the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Let's build the web together.